I've been holding on to something for years, something that changed everything I believed about life, death, and what's out there. It's a confession, really, whispered from the shadows of my past, a truth so profound and unsettling that it has reshaped the very fabric of my understanding. For a long time, I debated sharing this, wondering if the world was ready, if I was ready to face the consequences of unveiling such a monumental secret. But the burden of this knowledge has grown too heavy, too urgent to keep hidden any longer. It started with a call in the middle of the night, not from a friend, not from family, not even a wrong number. It was an invitation to a place I wasn't supposed to know existed, a conversation I wasn't meant to overhear, a reality I was never meant to glimpse. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost mechanical, yet it carried an undeniable authority, a chilling certainty that left no room for doubt or refusal. It spoke of an opportunity, a chance to see beyond the veil, to touch the forbidden. And despite every instinct screaming for me to hang up, to dismiss it as a prank or a hallucination, an unshakable curiosity, a deep-seated hunger for answers, compelled me to listen. That single, cryptic call led me down a path I could never have imagined. It led me to a dimly lit room, to the hushed tones of classified conversations, and to the unsettling presence of a man whose eyes held the weight of 1,000 secrets. He told me things, showed me things, that made my blood run cold. Things about visitors, not from across borders, but from across galaxies. Things about what they left behind, not just wreckage and theories, but knowledge. Knowledge that defied our science, our philosophy, our very understanding of existence. He spoke of beings who had crossed the vast emptiness of space, not just to observe, but to communicate. And what they communicated was far more astonishing than any technological marvel. This brings us to the core question, the one that has haunted humanity since the dawn of consciousness. What if everything we think we know about dying is wrong? What if the answers to our deepest existential questions, to the mysteries of what lies beyond the final breath, didn't come from ancient texts or revered prophets or spiritual gurus? What if those answers came from beings who never drew breath on this planet? Beings whose origins were as alien to Earth as their understanding of the cosmos. I'm going to tell you how I learned about the afterlife, not from dusty scriptures or meditative trances, but from beings who were not from here. And their knowledge didn't come from Earth. It came from a place beyond our comprehension, a realm of understanding so vast that it dwarfs our most sophisticated theories. This isn't a story of faith. It's a story of information, of data, of revelations extracted under the most extraordinary circumstances. It's a journey into the heart of the unknown, guided by intelligence that completely redefines what it means to be alive and what it means to transition beyond life. The world, as we know it, with its scientific certainties and spiritual divides, has been built on assumptions about death. We fear it. We mourn it. We speculate about it. But ultimately, we accept it as an absolute end, or a leap of faith into an unknown. But what if those assumptions were fundamentally flawed? What if an external, non-human perspective offered a clarity that our limited, earthbound consciousness could never achieve on its own? This knowledge, this profound insight into the nature of existence beyond the physical, has been meticulously guarded, deemed too disruptive, too paradigm-shattering for the general public. But I believe the time for secrecy is over. This story will challenge everything you believe. It will force you to re-examine your deepest convictions about life, about death, and about your place in the universe. It will ask you to open your mind to possibilities that our current science is only just beginning to grasp. Are you ready? Are you ready to confront a truth that has been deliberately hidden? A truth that could fundamentally alter your perception of reality? Because once you hear this, once you understand what I'm about to reveal, there's no going back. The world will never look the same again. This isn't just a tale. It's an unveiling, a peeling back of the layers of deception and ignorance that have shrouded humanity for millennia. And it all begins with the silent, profound wisdom of those who came from beyond the stars, offering a glimpse into what truly awaits us all. I was just a regular guy, a data analyst for a government contractor in Washington, D.C. My world was spreadsheets, deadlines, and the occasional conspiracy theory I joke about with friends during lunch breaks. Life was predictable, comfortable, almost mundane. I navigated the labyrinthine corridors of federal buildings, my days filled with algorithms and data sets, blissfully unaware of the profound secrets lurking just beneath the surface of the seemingly ordinary. My expertise was in pattern recognition, sifting through vast oceans of information to find the anomalies, the outliers, the almost imperceptible threads that could connect disparate pieces of intelligence. Little did I know, this very skill would inadvertently lead me to the precipice of a truth too immense for most minds to comprehend. One day, a data packet landed on my desk. It wasn't assigned to me, at least not officially. It was misfiled, encrypted with a protocol far more complex than anything I typically encountered, and labeled with a series of acronyms that sent a shiver down my spine. Project Looking Glass. Extraterrestrial Biological Entities Interrogation Logs. My initial reaction was a mix of disbelief and amusement. I thought it was a prank, some elaborate role-playing game cooked up by a bored colleague, perhaps a test of my security protocols. After all, the government was known for its obscure internal jokes and convoluted training exercises. But the security clearance levels indicated on the file, the names I recognized from obscure intelligence reports, individuals whose reputations were whispered in hushed tones within the intelligence community. They felt too real, too authentic to be part of a mere game. The encryption itself was a masterpiece of complexity, far beyond the scope of a typical prank. It hinted at something genuinely sensitive, something deliberately hidden. The initial disbelief quickly gave way to a growing, almost obsessive curiosity. I started digging. Late nights bled into early mornings as I used my authorized access to cross-reference terms, names, dates, and project codes. The more I delved into the peripheral data surrounding that misfiled packet, the more the rabbit hole just kept getting deeper. I found fragmented reports hinting at unusual aerial phenomena, redacted debriefings from military personnel, and even archaic psychological profiles of individuals who had reported inexplicable encounters. Each piece of information, carefully unearthed from the digital archives, chipped away at my skepticism, replacing it with a gnawing sense of unease. My comfortable, predictable world began to fray at the edges, revealing glimpses of a reality far stranger than any science fiction novel I had ever read. The data wasn't just anomalous, it was consistent. Too consistent across disparate sources and timelines to be mere coincidence or fabrication. There was a narrative forming, a suppressed history that contradicted everything I had been taught about our place in the universe. My growing obsession eventually led me to seek out others who might have encountered similar anomalies. I found Elias Vance through an old forum, a whisper network for people who felt something wasn't right. a clandestine digital space where disillusioned former intelligence operatives and academic renegades exchanged cryptic messages. He was cautious, paranoid, his digital footprint almost untraceable, but he saw something in my questions, an echo of his own past inquiries. Our online exchanges were slow, deliberate, filled with layers of encryption and coded language, each message a test of trust and sincerity. He rarely offered direct answers, preferring instead to guide me towards more questions, pushing me to find the connections myself. The first meeting was orchestrated with the precision of a spy novel. It was in a dimly lit diner, tucked away in a forgotten corner of rural Maryland, far from the prying eyes of Washington, D.C. The air hung thick with the smell of stale coffee and fried food. He was older than I expected, his face etched with lines of worry and exhaustion. His eyes, however, held a sharp, intelligent glint that belied his weary demeanor. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "You've seen some things, haven't you, kid?" It wasn't a question, but a statement, a recognition that instantly dissolved the last vestiges of my doubt. That's when I knew I wasn't alone. That's when I knew the data packet wasn't a prank, and the rabbit hole was real. Elias Vance was the confirmation I desperately needed, and the terrifying validation that my world was about to change forever. He told me he had access to the real stuff, the unredacted files, the direct testimonies, the evidence that had been systematically suppressed for decades. But it came with a price, a heavy one. He wanted to expose it, to rip open the veil of secrecy that had enveloped these truths. But he was an old man, operating from the fringes, his resources dwindling, his time running out. He needed someone on the inside, someone with current access, someone to verify his claims, to provide the contemporary data points that would lend undeniable credence to his historical archives. He looked at me, a young, naive analyst with a security clearance and a burning curiosity, and saw his last chance to bring the truth to light. His offer wasn't just a proposition, it was a desperate plea, a transfer of a burden he could no longer carry alone. And even though every fiber of my being screamed at the danger, the magnitude of what he hinted at, the sheer audacity of the secret, compelled me to accept. My ordinary life was over. A new, perilous path had just begun. I started feeding him information, small pieces at first, things that confirmed what he already suspected. It was a dangerous dance, a tightrope walk between my official duties and my clandestine collaboration with Elias. Each piece of data I leaked was carefully selected, seemingly innocuous to an outsider, but vital to Elias's intricate puzzle. I'd cross-reference his historical documents with current intelligence, providing him with the modern context, the missing links that brought his decades-old theories into terrifying focus. He, in turn, started sharing more with me, slowly peeling back the layers of deception, revealing the true scale of the secret world I had inadvertently stumbled into. This wasn't merely about UFOs, it was about a profound, almost existential cover-up. He explained that after Roswell and other lesser-known incidents scattered across the globe, several biological entities were recovered. Not just crashed ships, not just debris, but actual beings. He spoke of them with a chilling detachment, born from years of dealing with such classified information. These weren't creatures from horror movies, nor were they benevolent visitors. They were simply alien. Their physiology, their cognition, their very understanding of reality was fundamentally different from anything humanity had ever encountered. The initial recovery efforts were chaotic, driven by fear and an insatiable desire to understand, to exploit, To control? These beings, Elias claimed, were kept in facilities deep underground, hidden from public scrutiny and even from most government officials. These weren't prisons in the traditional sense, but highly specialized research compounds, built for the singular purpose of interspecies communication and extraction of knowledge. The goal wasn't to torture them, Elias stressed, but to understand, to extract information, not just about their technology or origins, but about their very nature, their consciousness, their purpose. The ethical implications were staggering, but in the clandestine world of classified operations, such considerations were often secondary to national security or what was perceived as such. For years, it was a struggle, a frustrating, often futile endeavor to bridge the vast chasm of understanding between two vastly different forms of intelligence. Scientists, linguists, cryptographers, and psychologists toiled endlessly, trying to decipher strange symbols, interpret fleeting telepathic impressions, and analyze complex energy patterns that seemed to emanate from the entities. They called it Project Babel, a poignant nod to the biblical tale of humanity's inability to speak a common language. The aliens, whatever their intentions, seemed as bewildered by us as we were by them. Communication was rudimentary, fragmented, often misinterpreted, leading to more questions than answers. The sheer alienness of their thought processes made direct translation impossible. It was like trying to understand a symphony by analyzing individual notes without ever hearing the melody. Then Elias told me about Dr. Evelyn Reed, a brilliant linguist and astrophysicist, a woman whose name was whispered with a mixture of reverence and suspicion within the intelligence community. She was unorthodox, fearless, and possessed an almost intuitive understanding of complex systems. Dr. Reed found a way to bridge the gap. Not through spoken words, not through deciphering symbols, but through a radical, almost spiritual approach: shared consciousness. She theorized that true communication wouldn't come from external translation, but from internal resonance, a direct interface with the entity's minds. It was a dangerous, unprecedented experiment, pushing the boundaries of human understanding and technology. Using specialized neurolinguistic interfaces and what Elias vaguely referred to as biofeedback resonance chambers, Dr. Reed achieved what others deemed impossible. She established a rudimentary yet profound connection. The breakthrough wasn't a sudden flood of information, but rather a gradual dawning, a slow unfolding of alien perspectives. The first glimpses of information received from the entities weren't about technology or interstellar travel, as many had hoped. It was far more profound, far more unsettling. It was about existence, about the nature of reality itself, about consciousness, and about the fundamental fabric of the cosmos. These initial fragments were like pieces of a cosmic tapestry, hinting at a design far grander and more intricate than our limited human minds could conceive. They spoke of energy, resonance, cycles, and connections that transcended physical form. It was a philosophy, a science, and a spiritual understanding all rolled into one, utterly alien yet strangely resonant. The more I learned, the more I pulled away from my old life. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Every shadow felt like a watcher, every phone call a potential trap. The weight of the secrets I carried, the sheer magnitude of the truths I was uncovering, began to isolate me from everyone I knew. My friends noticed my preoccupation. My colleagues remarked on my increasingly withdrawn demeanor. I couldn't explain it, couldn't share the terrifying beauty of what I was witnessing. How do you tell someone that everything they believe about life and death is a carefully constructed illusion maintained by a clandestine government program based on knowledge from extraterrestrial beings. The paranoia was a constant companion, a cold knot in my stomach. I was no longer just a data analyst. I was a custodian of forbidden knowledge, a pawn in a game I barely understood, caught between the mundane world and a reality far beyond human comprehension. My transformation was complete. The government, Elias explained, had a deep-seated, almost primal fear of what these captured aliens knew about death. It wasn't just about controlling information. It was about controlling humanity's fundamental understanding of its own mortality. A species that understood death not as an end, but as a transition, was a species far harder to manipulate, far less susceptible to the fear-based tactics that underpinned so much of earthly power structures. Any disclosure related to post-corporeal existence or soul transference was immediately red-flagged, deemed too dangerous for public consumption. This wasn't merely a matter of national security, but of societal stability, a deliberate effort to maintain the existing paradigm of life and death, of reward and punishment. He showed me documents outlining intricate protocols designed to de-emphasize or recontextualize any alien disclosures related to the afterlife. These weren't crude cover-ups, but sophisticated psychological operations, carefully crafted narratives designed to discredit, confuse, or simply bury any inconvenient truths. If an entity hinted at consciousness persisting beyond the body, the reports would be edited to focus on the entity's unique biology. If a shared consciousness experience suggested reincarnation, it would be reframed as a telepathic hallucination induced by alien neurochemistry. They wanted control over the narrative, not just for today, but for generations to come, ensuring humanity remained blissfully ignorant of its true potential. The entities themselves, through Dr. Reed's increasingly sophisticated interface, expressed a profound sense of sorrow, almost pity, for humanity's primitive understanding of what happens when the body stops. They perceived our fear of death as a self-imposed prison, a limiting belief that prevented us from fully experiencing life. They didn't understand our grief, our despair, or our clinging to the physical form as if it were the only reality. To them, it was like mourning a caterpillar for transforming into a butterfly, or weeping over a seed for becoming a tree. Their perspective was so vast, so encompassing, that our human anxieties about oblivion seemed almost childish, a tragic misunderstanding of universal law. The core revelation, as Elias painstakingly pieced it together from fragmented logs and Dr. Reed's translated notes, was that consciousness was not a product of the brain. It was not something that flickered into existence at birth and extinguished at death. Instead, they described it as an energy, a fundamental resonance, an intrinsic part of the universal fabric. The physical body, the brain, was merely a receiver, an antenna, a temporary vessel for this consciousness. When the body ceased to function, the consciousness didn't disappear. It simply shifted states, disengaged from the physical receiver, and returned to a larger, interconnected energetic field. It was an elegant, almost scientific explanation for what we call the soul, stripped of all religious dogma, presented as a natural process of the cosmos. My superiors, however, were not interested in cosmic truths. My increasing late-night access, the unusual patterns in my data queries, and my growing disengagement from my assigned tasks had not gone unnoticed. My access logs were being reviewed with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Elias, ever vigilant, warned me. "You're pushing too hard. Too fast, kid," he'd rasped during one of our burner phone calls. "They're watching. They know you're looking for something. even if they don't know what. The air grew heavy, with a sense of impending doom, a feeling that the walls were closing in around me. Every shadow danced with suspicion. Every innocent question from a colleague felt like an interrogation. Then, one morning, Elias just vanished. His apartment was empty, meticulously cleaned, as if he'd never lived there. His burner phone, which had always been religiously charged and answered within moments, was dead. No goodbye, no warning, just an eerie silence that screamed of professional efficiency. I knew then that they weren't just watching, they were acting. And if they could make a seasoned operative like Elias disappear without a trace, they were certainly coming for me too. The world felt suddenly cold, devoid of the one person who understood the burden I carried, the one person who had guided me through this labyrinth of secrets. A cold dread settled deep in my stomach, quickly replaced by a surge of desperate resolve. I couldn't let Elias's work and the alien's truth be buried forever. It was a race against time. I had to get the information out. I started downloading everything I could get my hands on, every encrypted log, every translated note from Dr. Reed, every single piece of data that could shed light on the alien disclosures. I worked frantically, bypassing protocols, exploiting every loophole I knew, my fingers flying across the keyboard, knowing that each click, each download, was my last chance to preserve this knowledge. The risk was immense, the consequences potentially fatal, but the alternative, allowing this profound truth to be erased, was simply unthinkable. My life, as I knew it, was over, but a new mission, a desperate and dangerous one, had just begun. I erased my digital footprint, a meticulous and paranoid process I had learned from Elias. Every email account, every social media profile, every trace of my existence online was systematically wiped clean or disguised beyond recognition. I packed a small bag with essentials, a few changes of clothes, a burner laptop loaded with the stolen data, and a wad of cash I had been squirreling away for months. The drive out of D.C. was a blur of adrenaline and fear. Every car that passed me, every pair of headlights in my rearview mirror, felt like a pursuer. I drove for hours, pushing the speed limit, taking back roads, my mind racing, replaying every warning Elias had ever given me. My old life, my identity, my career, they were all behind me now, sacrificed on the altar of a truth too immense to ignore. The city lights faded into the distance, replaced by the encroaching darkness of rural highways. Each mile, a step further into the unknown. My destination was a remote cabin nestled deep in the Pacific Northwest, a place Elias had mentioned only once, in passing as a contingency, a safe house for when things inevitably went south. It was isolated, perched on the edge of a vast forest, with no cell service and no visible neighbors for miles. Just trees and silence. A profound, almost oppressive quiet that swallowed the echoes of my frantic escape. It was a good place to think, and to process the terrifying truth I now carried, a truth that had cost me everything. The cabin was rustic, sparsely furnished, but it had electricity, and crucially, a sturdy lock on the door. I spent the first few days simply existing, eating canned food and staring out at the endless expanse of green, trying to reconcile the mundane reality of my surroundings with the cosmic revelations swirling in my mind. I spent weeks, then months in that cabin, poring over the files Elias had given me and the ones I had managed to steal. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, a digital archive spanning decades of clandestine research. The alien language, a complex tapestry of symbols and energy patterns, was initially impenetrable, but Dr. Reed's translated notes were a roadmap, a Rosetta Stone that slowly began to unlock the entity's profound wisdom. I worked relentlessly, fueled by instant coffee and a burning need to understand. The cabin became my monastic cell, the glowing screen of my laptop, my only window to the universe. Each decrypted file, each translated passage, was a revelation, chipping away at the foundation of my earthly understanding. Slowly, painstakingly, the full picture began to emerge. The aliens' detailed account of death was not a philosophical treatise, but a scientific explanation of a universal process. They described it not as an end, but as a transition, a shedding of the physical vessel, much like a snake sheds its skin, allowing the consciousness to return to a larger, interconnected energy field. This field, they explained, was the source of all life, a vast cosmic ocean of potential and experience. The physical body was merely a temporary vehicle, a localized expression of this greater consciousness, designed for specific experiences within a particular vibrational frequency, or what we perceive as reality. Death was simply the act of disengaging from that vehicle, a return to a more fundamental state of being. They spoke of repatterning, a concept that resonated deeply with human notions of reincarnation or cyclical existence, but with a far more intricate and scientific explanation. This consciousness, this soul, did not simply disappear or wait indefinitely. It would eventually find a new vessel, a new physical form, often with echoes of past experiences, talents, or even unresolved emotional patterns. It wasn't a punishment or a reward, but a natural process of evolution, a continuous journey of learning and growth across countless lifetimes. The choice of the next vessel, they implied, was often guided by the energetic resonance of the consciousness itself, seeking out experiences that would further its development. It was a self-correcting, self-optimizing system, driven by an inherent urge towards balance and understanding. What truly blew my mind, however, was their understanding of parallel realities and timelines. They didn't just exist. They were an inherent part of the fabric of existence. They explained that our choices, even the most mundane ones, ripple across countless timelines, creating infinite versions of our lives and deaths. Every decision we make, every path not taken, generates a branching reality, a parallel self experiencing a different outcome. This wasn't just theoretical, it was their lived experience, a fundamental aspect of their perception. They could perceive these branching paths, the myriad possibilities, simultaneously, giving them an incredibly vast and nuanced understanding of cause and effect, of potential and consequence. It made our linear, singular perception of time seem incredibly limited, almost quaint. The aliens' perspective also illuminated a profound difference in their spiritual understanding. They had no gods, no dogma, no organized religion in the human sense. Yet they possessed an inherent, deeply ingrained spirituality that permeated every aspect of their existence. It was an understanding of the universal energy that binds all life, a consciousness that transcended individual forms, a fundamental interconnectedness that made separation an illusion. They saw themselves as integral parts of this cosmic tapestry, each individual consciousness a unique thread contributing to the whole. Their faith, if one could call it that, was in the natural laws of the universe, in the cyclical nature of existence, and in the inherent wisdom of the interconnected energy field. It was a spirituality grounded in observation, experience, and a profound respect for the cosmic order. This was not a belief system. It was a way of being, a state of awareness that had been lost to humanity for millennia. My time in the cabin, immersed in these alien truths, was transforming me, stripping away my old fears and replacing them with a sense of awe and an unshakable resolve. Living with this knowledge, knowing humanity was being deliberately kept in the dark, became unbearable. The profound implications of what I had learned, the sheer beauty and logic of the alien understanding of existence, screamed for release. I felt an overwhelming responsibility, a sacred trust, not just to Elias, who had risked everything, and to the alien entities whose wisdom had been so cruelly suppressed, but to every single person on Earth who lived in fear of an illusion. The truth, in its raw, unvarnished form, had to be shared. It was no longer a question of personal safety. It was a moral imperative. My solitary existence in the cabin, once a refuge, now felt like a prison, holding back a flood of vital information. My decision to share this truth led me to create an anonymous online presence. This wasn't a whim. It was a calculated, painstaking process. I spent weeks using the skills I had honed as a data analyst and the clandestine techniques Elias had taught me, building an impenetrable digital fortress. Encrypted networks, multi-layered VPNs, constantly rotating burner accounts. Every precaution was taken to ensure I remained untraceable. The channel I was building, a seemingly innocuous platform for discussing fringe theories, was in fact a Trojan horse, designed to slowly introduce the astonishing revelations I possessed. It was a digital ghost ship, captained by an invisible hand carrying a cargo of forbidden knowledge. I started with small, cryptic pieces of information, like breadcrumbs leading to a larger truth. I would post abstract concepts, philosophical questions, or seemingly unrelated historical anomalies, all carefully chosen to resonate with the alien perspectives I had absorbed. I talked about the nature of consciousness, the cyclical patterns in history, the feeling of déjà vu, but always framed in a way that wouldn't immediately trigger the systems designed to suppress such discourse. My initial drops were subtle, almost poetic, designed to pique curiosity without revealing the source. They were whispers in the digital wind, meant to stir the subconscious, to plant seeds of doubt in the established narrative. I was testing the waters, gauging the appetite for truth, and subtly building an audience. The response was unexpected and in many ways overwhelming. People started finding my content. Some were hardened skeptics, dissecting every word, searching for inconsistencies. Others were fervent believers, recognizing echoes of their own intuitions. But a surprising number were simply curious, drawn by the questions I posed, the sense of something deeper lurking beneath the surface. The comments section, once a blank space, became a wild, fascinating space, a forum for debate, speculation, and shared wonder. People started connecting the dots I had subtly laid out, forming their own theories, pushing the boundaries of conventional thought. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and profoundly validating. I was no longer alone in this pursuit of truth. The aliens' logs weren't just sterile descriptions of cosmic processes. They contained urgent warnings, warnings about humanity's collective ignorance, about the profound manipulation of our perception of reality, and about the dangerous trajectory we were on. It felt as if they were speaking directly to me, through the generations of translation and decryption, urging me on. Their warnings were not of external threats, but of internal decay, a spiritual and intellectual stagnation caused by our limited understanding of existence. They spoke of the critical juncture humanity was facing, where our choices, informed by fear and ignorance, could lock us into increasingly bleak timelines. Their message wasn't a prophecy of doom, but a call to action, an appeal to awaken our dormant potential before it was too late. I was their reluctant messenger, tasked with delivering a message that could either save or condemn our species. As my channel gained traction, I started noticing subtle shifts in the online landscape. More debunking videos began to appear, specifically targeting the themes I explored, often employing sophisticated rhetoric and carefully curated experts. There was an increase in coordinated attacks on my content, not just from individual trolls, but from what appeared to be organized groups attempting to flood my comments with misinformation or outright ridicule. It wasn't overt censorship, but a more insidious form of suppression, a deliberate effort to dilute the signal with noise. It confirmed, unequivocally, that I was hitting a nerve. The sheer volume and coordination suggested a much larger, well-funded operation, validating Elias's claims about the government's desperate need to control the narrative. They were watching, and they were responding. This isn't just my story. It's our story. The truth about life and death, about our true nature and our place in the cosmos, has been hidden from us for far too long. It's time we demanded to know. It's time we questioned every established belief, every cultural narrative that seeks to diminish our potential and instill fear. The information I share, the alien revelations about consciousness, parallel realities, and the cyclical nature of existence, fundamentally alter our understanding of what it means to be human. This isn't about belief. It's about knowledge, about reclaiming a birthright that has been systematically denied. The time for passive acceptance is over. It's time to awaken, to connect, and to collectively demand the truth that has been withheld. We are at a pivotal moment, and our collective consciousness has the power to shift our reality. The aliens didn't just understand death. They experienced it differently. This was the ultimate secret, the most profound revelation contained within the meticulously decrypted logs. Their understanding wasn't theoretical or philosophical. It was an intrinsic part of their very being. They possessed the ability to consciously navigate the in-between state, the ethereal realm between physical incarnations, with a clarity and purpose that humans could barely fathom. This wasn't a blind journey into the unknown. It was a conscious transition, a deliberate shedding of one form and a thoughtful consideration of the next. They could, in essence, choose their next incarnation, guided by a higher purpose, a cosmic blueprint for their continued evolution. It was a level of self-mastery over existence that dwarfed all human spiritual pursuits. Death, for them, was not an involuntary event, but a planned metamorphosis, a deliberate step in an eternal journey of learning and experience. They saw our short, often painful lives on Earth, not as a curse or a punishment, but as a unique and invaluable school. Our human experience, with its intense emotional spectrum, its physical limitations, and its inherent challenges, was a crucible for rapid evolution. Other beings existing in more harmonious or advanced states lacked the raw, visceral lessons that Earth life provided. The joy, the sorrow, the love, the loss, the struggle for survival, all these elements combined to create an accelerated learning environment, forging resilience, empathy, and a depth of understanding that was difficult to achieve in less dense realities. They viewed our planet as a highly sought-after destination for consciousness, seeking intense growth, a cosmic boot camp for the soul. Our suffering, while tragic from our perspective, was, from theirs, a catalyst for unparalleled spiritual development. But this unique value came with a profound warning. They cautioned that our collective ignorance about these fundamental realities, our fear-driven denial of the true nature of consciousness and existence, was creating temporal distortions. These weren't just abstract concepts, they were observable phenomena, ripple effects across the multiverse. Our inability to grasp the cyclical nature of life, our obsession with material possessions, and our propensity for conflict, all fueled by the illusion of separation, were leading to increasingly unstable timelines. Humanity's future, in these distorted realities, was becoming progressively bleak, characterized by escalating environmental collapse, societal breakdown, and self-destruction. Their message was clear. Understanding the truth about life and death wasn't just for individual enlightenment. It was crucial for the collective survival and harmonious evolution of our species. The choice to remain ignorant was, quite literally, a choice for self-annihilation. Their explanation for phenomena like déjà vu, spontaneous past life regressions, and unshakable intuition was equally astonishing. They called them memory echoes. These weren't random glitches in perception or mere psychological quirks. They were genuine reverberations from past incarnations, or, even more mind-bendingly, from parallel selves existing in adjacent timelines. When we experience a sudden, inexplicable familiarity with a place we've never visited, or a strong, undeniable gut feeling about a decision, it's not a coincidence. It's a whisper from another version of us, a fragment of memory, bleeding through the thin veil between realities. These echoes serve as subtle guides, prompts from the larger consciousness, offering insights and warnings that bypass our linear, logical minds. They are reminders of our multidimensional nature, proof that our existence is far richer and more complex than we perceive. The aliens' advice for humanity, distilled from countless millennia of observing evolving civilizations, was surprisingly simple, yet profoundly challenging. Their message was clear. Embrace the interconnectedness of all things. Understand the cyclical nature of existence, recognizing that life and death are merely two sides of the same coin, part of an eternal flow, and most importantly, release the fear of death. It's not an end, but a door, a gateway to a new phase of existence, a return to the source. This fear, they explained, was the primary impediment to our evolution, locking us into lower vibrational states and preventing us from realizing our true potential. By shedding this fear, humanity could unlock dormant abilities, achieve unprecedented levels of collective consciousness, and navigate the future with wisdom and grace. This knowledge, absorbed over months of solitary study in that remote cabin, had transformed me utterly. The man who had fled DC in a panic was gone, replaced by someone profoundly altered. I no longer feared death. The concept itself had been redefined, stripped of its terror, and replaced with a sense of wonder and anticipation. I saw life differently now. Every moment was precious, imbued with a newfound significance. Every connection, every interaction, no matter how fleeting, felt meaningful, because I understood that it was all part of a much grander design, an intricate dance of consciousness across countless lifetimes and realities. My perspective had shifted from the finite to the infinite, from the personal to the cosmic. The mundane had become miraculous. I can't show you everything, not yet. The full scope of the alien logs, the diagrams, the energy schematics, the translated narratives. They are too vast, too complex, and frankly, too dangerous to release all at once. But I can give you a glimpse, a fragment, of the most compelling, yet still vague piece of evidence. Imagine a single image, a translated excerpt from Dr. Reed's notes, depicting a complex geometric pattern. It's not just a symbol, it's a representation of energy flow, a visual language describing the transition of consciousness. This pattern, they explained, is what the human soul experiences at the moment of physical death. A rapid, ordered expansion, a reintegration into the cosmic fabric. It's a blueprint for the journey, a universal map, and beneath it, a single translated phrase, rendered in elegant, precise English. The veil is an illusion. The journey continues. This is what they meant. This is the core truth they sought to impart. I'm still out here, still hiding. The digital breadcrumbs I've left, the subtle provocations, have undoubtedly tightened the net around me. Every flicker of my laptop screen in the dead of night feels like a beacon. Every rustle in the surrounding forest a potential pursuer. The stakes are higher than ever, the isolation more profound, but so too is the conviction that this truth, this extraordinary knowledge, needs to be heard by every living soul on this planet. My life, my freedom, even my very existence seem a small price to pay for the liberation of human consciousness. The fear has not entirely vanished, but it has been transmuted into a fierce resolve, a burning certainty that this mission is far greater than my individual survival. I am merely a vessel for a message that transcends time and space. Even with the monumental revelations contained within the alien logs, there are still so many questions that gnaw at me in the quiet hours. Who are these beings, truly? What is their species name? Their origin story? Their cosmic hierarchy? If such a thing exists, where did they come from? This civilization capable of such profound understanding of existence? And what is their ultimate purpose in the grand tapestry of the universe? Are they benevolent observers, cosmic teachers, or simply advanced travelers sharing a universal truth? The logs, as extensive as they are, offer glimpses, fragments, but never the full, unvarnished picture of their own civilization. It's like reading an ancient, sacred text, only to find the author's identity and motivations remain cloaked in mystery. Their wisdom is clear, but their personal narrative remains largely untold, leaving me with a hunger for more, a yearning to understand the architects of this incredible knowledge. If this extraordinary narrative has resonated with you, if it has pricked at the edges of your understanding, if it has made you question the very foundations of your beliefs, then know this: you are part of this journey now. Your engagement, your comments, your shares, your willingness to even consider these radical ideas, they are not merely passive actions. They are vital. They are the fuel that keeps this fragile flame of truth burning. Every time you share this video, every time you engage in a thoughtful discussion, you are amplifying the signal, helping to pierce through the carefully constructed veil of ignorance. This isn't just about me or Elias or even the alien entities. It's about our collective awakening. It's about humanity shedding its self-imposed limitations and embracing the grandeur of its true potential. Your participation is not just appreciated, it is essential to the success of this monumental undertaking. This, believe me, is just the beginning. The files I managed to extract, the data Elias entrusted to me, are a treasure trove, a cosmic library waiting to be fully deciphered. I have more to share, more layers of truth to peel back, more profound revelations to uncover. The next chapter, I promise you, will dive even deeper into the concept of soul families, exploring the intricate connections that bind us across lifetimes and dimensions. We will explore the idea of cosmic blueprints, the pre-incarnation plans that guide our earthly experiences, and how they intertwine with the concept of free will. There are still encrypted sections of the logs that speak of galactic federations, of other sentient species, and of the universal laws that govern all life. The journey into the unknown has only just begun, and with each step, we move closer to a complete understanding of our place in the cosmos. We are not alone. This profound truth, once a whispered secret, is now a blazing certainty in my heart. Our lives are not random, chaotic accidents in an indifferent universe. Every breath, every experience, every connection is part of an intricate, meaningful design. And death, that ultimate fear, that perceived finality, is not the end. It is merely a transition, a doorway to continued existence, a shedding of the physical vessel to allow the consciousness to return to its boundless, eternal state. It's time we woke up from the collective slumber, from the hypnotic trance of materialism and fear that has kept us bound for so long. Join me, truly join me, in this quest. And together, let's uncover the rest of this story. Let's bring these hidden truths into the light, and let's reclaim our rightful inheritance as cosmic beings. Don't miss the next part of this incredible, life-altering journey. If what you've heard today has stirred something within you, if it has ignited a spark of curiosity or a flicker of recognition, then I urge you, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, ensure you're alerted to every new release, every new piece of this cosmic puzzle. Be ready, for the journey ahead will challenge every preconceived notion you hold, and it will expand your consciousness in ways you never thought possible. Because the truth, the ultimate, unvarnished truth, is out there, waiting patiently to be discovered. And it is far stranger, infinitely more beautiful, and undeniably more profound than we, in our wildest dreams, could ever have imagined. It is a truth that will set us free,